Hey everyone, so I'm back with a new video, and in this video I'm going to show you and narrate to you my complete process of inking and coloring in a fashion illustration. And if you want to check out part 1 of this commentary video, then I'll provide a link somewhere in this video or in the down bar, so you can go check that out if you want. This video is going to be a bit faster than my previous one, which was in time-lapse for ×4, but this one's going to be ×8 because I had like an hour and a half long video footage, and I didn't really want to take up like 20-25 minutes of your time, like me narrating for the entire video, because it's just gonna take so long and I might bore you guys, so I didn't want to do that. So I tried to speed things up a little bit, and it took me maybe a few tries to actually record the thing, so in the end I got frustrated, and you can just hear me say ums and so yeah in my videos, because that's what happens when I don't write down what I want to say in a video. So I apologize for that right now. And I think that's about it. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and thank you for watching. After I finish a sketch, I then transfer it onto another piece of paper, which I'm going to be using my Copics with, and how I do that is I use a light box. At the beginning of this year, I did invest on a light box, and I can honestly say that it has slowly helped me improve with my illustrations. Although I do need a lot of practice, because I know a lot of artists out there, when they use a light box, they immediately ink their drawings, but I don't have the confidence to do that yet. So what I do is I still use a pencil to trace the sketches, and I just do it really lightly, and this kind of serves as my second sketch, and after that I then ink it. So before I actually ink a drawing, this is like the third part of the sketching process. I take a pencil and then I redraw some details that I want to make sure that I get right, and those details are usually the face. When I was younger, I used to have this mindset that if I finish an illustration quicker, it means that I'm better, and that's not really good, because there were so many mistakes that I made when I was just starting out with fashion illustration. I used to rush things so much, and it was just really bad. Right now I'm actually taking the time to ink and sketch an illustration, and it's really taken me longer than expected. Usually an illustration takes me about 2 hours, like complete sketching and inking and coloring in, but I can honestly say that it makes my illustrations a lot better. My lines are more defined and neater because I actually take the time and have the patience to ink slowly, and yeah. So I guess an advice I could give is to take the time to ink your illustrations, although it's personal preference, because I know a lot of artists like to use this style that is more rough, more sketchy, and that's not really my style. I tend to go for something more detailed, more neat. So I guess if you're trying to venture out into that kind of style, which is very similar to mine, then really just take your time with inking, because it really helps a lot with the details of the illustration. After I finish inking, I then move on to coloring in, and as you can see, I have a swatch paper, and I just tested out the colors that I wanted to use for this illustration. I would say that I have a lot of Copics, probably more than what I need, so it would not make sense if I did not use all the colors that were available to me. So what I try to do nowadays is I try to mix things up. I try to use the colors that I wouldn't normally use. I try to use different shades that I wouldn't
necessarily put together. It just, I guess, makes me work a lot more efficiently. So I'm actually using my resources. Yeah. Um, yeah. If I haven't mentioned the materials that I'm using already, the paper that I'm using is Quill Multiboard, which is made in Australia, so I'm not entirely sure if you can purchase this anywhere else, but it's nothing special really. It's basically this A4 white paper that's a little bit thicker than your normal printer paper. So it's pretty good for Copic markers because the ink doesn't bleed through the page, which I guess is essential when you're working with markers. So, yeah. Um I got it from a local school and office supply store here in Australia, which is called Officeworks. So, if you live here in Australia, um I guess you can purchase this if you want. It's called Quill Multiboard. So, yeah. The ink that I used is my favorite fineliner, which is Pilot G-Tech 0.3 millimeters in black, and I purchased it from the Philippines. Um, I don't really know where else you can get this because I tried searching here in Australia, just like the local art stores and office and school supply stores, but they didn't have them, which was kind of sad. And I also tried online once, but that was a really long time ago and I couldn't find it as well, so I'm not too sure if you can purchase this anywhere else. This is what I use for my Copics, and they work pretty good. They don't bleed when I put a lot of ink, but then again, I don't really use a lot of ink with Copic markers. And right now I'm actually coloring in the skirt with this red Copic marker, and I'm using the chisel tip and I'm just coloring in like a 5-year-old. It's completely streaky, it's in different directions, and it's just not a flat layer. And a lot of people would probably judge this kind of technique to be really bad when it comes to coloring in with Copic markers, because I've seen tutorials and they advise you to color in with a flat layer, because basically that's the whole point of the Copic markers, but I just don't do that because I am trying to save ink, and honestly, you won't really see the streakiness once you've added like a million layers of colors. So, yeah, that's just how I do it. It's personal preference. You might hate it, you might like it. It's completely up to you, and yeah, I'm just coloring in the skirt. So how I color is basically the same as how a lot of artists color. Um, they start from lightest shade to darkest shade, and that's just what I do. Um, but I do try to get a little bit of contrast with the shades of red. Like, for example, this dress. The lightest shade is usually like really far from the darkest shade of red, and I just think that it just gives it a bit more interest. And yeah, right now I'm actually testing out this gold glitter pen that I got from the dollar store, and I want to add in some gold detailing to the dress. So I'm testing it out on like different background colors, like a yellow background with a gold, or a gray one, or a dark red, and yeah. So I actually made a mistake here. I started off with yellow and then I changed my mind. I wanted it red, but I kind of didn't want it to look like it was a mistake, so eventually I tried to make it look as intentional as possible, so I worked with it. And this is just like an advice for beginners, I guess. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Some mistakes are fixable, and there are some that just cannot be fixed. And it's okay. Honestly, I think it's the final product or the final illustration that is kind of much more important. Unless you're making a video, because then the process is pretty important, because you are doing a time-lapse video of your process. But if you're just going to be showing that to other artists, or maybe just viewers or your parents, your friends, and all that kind of stuff, then it's fine if you repeat it like 5 times because they won't know. It's your little secret and it's up to you. It's your work. So you get the shots, you make the decisions on what you want to do. No one really tells you what you can and what you can't do, although there are things that it's much preferable, but in the end, the choice is yours. So, yeah. Right now, I am using a white fineliner, which is by the brand Uni-ball, and it's called Signo Broad. And I got it from Kiki.k, which is a stationery brand here in Australia, but I believe it's German. So I think you can purchase this um, anywhere else outside Australia. Plus, it's Uni-ball, which I think is an international brand. So yeah, it's I guess it's good, but I don't really use it for wide surfaces. Like, I don't use it to actually write something. I just use it to add a little bit of shine, a little bit of glitter or sparkly things on an illustration, which I am actually slowly gravitating towards. Like, I wasn't really a fan of glitter back then, but right now I just really like it. So who knows, maybe in the future I'll actually use real glitter. As you can see, I am finishing up with some gold detailings on the torso of the dress, and if you saw it, I added yellow first and then I went with the dark red. That wasn't a mistake. I actually did that on purpose because I want this to look uniform. Since I made a mistake before of adding the yellow first, I decided, what the heck, I'm just going to add the yellow again because it's going to give out the same effect, and that just makes it look like I actually did this intentionally on purpose. So yeah, it just doesn't make it look like it was a mistake. After this, I then move on to using my coloring pencils to add in the final touches, and I just use mostly black and white. I do sometimes use the colors like brown and red to add some shadows and highlights to this illustration, but the coloring pencils or pencil crayons that I use is by Faber-Castell, and it's the 48 Classic color. It's basically just a student coloring pencil set, so it's nothing fancy, but that's what I use. And yeah, so I'm just gonna leave it here. This is how I finish inking and coloring in a sketch, and thank you guys for watching.
Let's rock!